Yesterday we were talking about the possibility humans might vanish from the Earth as a result of global warming getting into an unstoppable positive feedback loop, a downward spiral. But this is very interesting. Wesley Smith, who is a senior fellow with the Discovery Institute's Center on Human Exceptionalism, is the author of a book called The War on Humans. You can read about it over at discovery.org, and Wesley is with us. Hey, Wesley, welcome to the program.
Hey, Tom, good talking to you again.
Thank you for joining us again. Are people no better than rocks, maggots, and squirrels? You know, from the point of view of biological systems, from the point of view of the planet, I would suggest that probably we're not as good as rocks, maggots, and squirrels because they're staying within their ecological niche, and we have reached the point where we're consuming more than half of all the fresh water on the planet. We're consuming about half the net photosynthetic productivity of the planet. We're driving to extinction dozens, if not hundreds, of species every day. Yeah, I got a problem with that.
Yeah, well, so you're anti-human.
No, I'm not anti-human. I'm anti-sick culture. We did not behave this way toward the planet until the last couple hundred years.
You know, the planet doesn't have a point of view. And secondly, it's only in the last couple of hundred years that human beings have had existences that you could even call prosperous. It's only in the last few hundred years that we've been able to defeat disease and not have a hand-to-mouth form of miserable existence.
Well, if you really believe that, you've never bothered to study anthropology.
The very things that brought us prosperity and freedom.
Are you familiar with the phrase white Indians?
No.
Okay. I would strongly recommend that you go back and read the history of the early settlers from Europe, of North America, and starting with Jamestown, and you know, basically for the first 100 years or so, the very large number, the very real problem that these European settlers had, most of them were, you know, here on behalf of the East India Company. A lot of the labor that they brought with them was poor Europeans who had indentured themselves or had come over for a job. They got here, they got to know the American Indians, the Native Americans in the communities around them, and they said, wow, life is really good for these people, and life really sucks here in these American colonies. There's disease, there's death, there's plagues and famines and all kinds of weird, you know, and I'm going to become an Indian. And they called them white Indians. There were a lot of tribes and a lot of communities on this continent.
Live in a tent somewhere, do away with running water, and not have electricity to run your show.
Well, they didn't have electricity back then. The Europeans didn't have electricity either.
It was much harder because they didn't. What would be the best thing that could happen for the African continent, for the people living in Africa? Electrify the entire continent. Have a grid on the continent.
Not if they do it with fossil fuels.
We can't do that because it'll destroy the earth, keeping people mired in destitution and misery. I can't imagine that you, as a good liberal, want that.
You're making a straw man argument, a false argument. There are places across Africa where they are putting. In fact, I've been there. I've seen these operating in South Sudan and in Kenya, where relief groups are going in and they're putting in solar panels to run pumps to bring fresh water out of aquifers so that people can have access to fresh water.
So, Tom, how long
and it burns no fossil fuels.
How many decades do you think it will be to do that kind of little solar thing, which I'm for, before the whole continent can be a grid?
Well, it took Germany 10 years to reach the point where 40% of their total electricity was generated by solar power.
Solar power isn't going to be the answer in this world for decades, and so
it took Germany 10 years to hit 40%.
Mired in disease and misery for decades. What a compassionate
Wesley, are you listening to me?
What a compassionate, wonderful, caring man you are.
Have you heard anything I've said?
Let the people go down the drain.
Wesley, let me say it again. It took Germany 10 years to reach the point where they could generate 40% of their electricity with solar power. 10 years. You asked how long is it going to take to solarize Africa? I think, you know, with a significant investment and a buy-in from the people of Africa, you could do it in a decade.
I don't think so, but let's hope so. But in the meantime, let's get it going with things that we know will work now. Let's electrify Africa. And by the way, I don't know how you expect to have people follow an environmental movement in which some of the main voices are now beginning to call us a cancer on the planet, a plague on the planet, supporting China's one-child policy that involves forced abortion and female infanticide. That's the end of the environmental movement. Do you wonder why environmental movement has lost a lot of its following in this country? Take a look at the anti-humanism that has replaced the positive environmentalism that cleaned up our water and cleaned up our air.
So you think that 7 billion humans on the planet is a good thing?
I think that the way to reduce...
How many more should we have?
I think that the
Should
way...
we become 10?
You want to let me answer the question or just
Sure.
give me a lecture?
Go for it.
Thank you very much. The way to handle the number of people on the planet is to increase prosperity. The more their people are prosperous, the fewer children they will have. But if you want to go down the road of the China one-child policy, like Sir David Attenborough does and many other advocates for global warming, you're talking about instilling a form of tyranny. I can't believe you would want forced abortion, Tom, as a way of...
Again, you're suggesting a straw man. I have never suggested any of those things.
I'm asking you. You defended China's one-child policy.
No, I didn't.
Well, then I'm saying you cannot...
You just made that up.
Policy. You cannot have that kind of a policy. And
no, if you want a very simple way to reduce population, it's not increasing prosperity. It's giving education and political power to women. When you do that, regardless of the level of prosperity, population drops.
We will totally agree. Let's increase power for women, and let's increase education for women, and let's increase prosperity, because the more prosperous people are, the smaller families they feel comfortable having.
Not necessarily. If you look at Saudi Arabia, you look at Qatar, you look at these countries in the Middle East where people are given $40,000 a year from the government as a baseline, right? Everybody's rich. They still have 11 children as an average family size.
That happens to be...
It's got nothing to do with prosperity. It has to do with the power of women.
Now, that has to do with also a religious perspective.
It has to do with a religion that oppresses women, just like fundamentalist Christianity does.
Well, I don't care about fundamentalist Christianity or Islam in this regard. We need to increase prosperity. People will have smaller children, and we certainly should...
No, it's not prosperity.
Let me ask you, Tom, do you condemn China's one-child policy unequivocally?
Sure.
Good. Well, see, there's another area of agreement. But those who don't condemn it, in fact, those who support it, I contend are anti-human.
You're saying 7 billion people on the planet is just fine. We have more than half of us, about 5 billion of us, are living on less than $2 a day. If all 7 billion of us lived at the standard of living, the poverty level in the United States, it would take 4 planet Earths to provide the natural resources to make all the junk that we would all be consuming. Where are you going to get that from?
We're going to, first off, with technology, and secondly, what I'm talking about is not engaging in policies that would be destructive to the people who are alive on this planet today, and to promote the kind of policies that you and I agree on. More power for women, and I wish you believed in more prosperity, as opposed to a lot of environmentalists who talk about deep...
I'm very concerned about your definition of prosperity.
Well, let's just talk about...
How many more people can this planet withstand?
I don't know. It depends on our technology.
You don't think we're overpopulated right now?
I think we probably are a little overpopulated.
So what are you going to do about it?
I'm not going to engage in one-child type policies. In fact, did you
So
know
what are you going to do about it?
Policy of China. They have not...
What are you going to do about it?
I'm not going to do anything except what you have agreed to, which is improve prosperity, which is to improve power for women, to improve education for women, to give people better technology, to grow, to have more electricity in these poor places, and engage in pro-human environmentalism, not this anti-humanism, you're no better than a squirrel nonsense.
Okay. Well,
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
I do think from the point of view of the planet, and I disagree, I think it is sentient, that we are no better than a squirrel. Wesley Smith, discovery.org. You can read all about it. Thank you, Wesley.
Thank you, Tom.